Hi loves, welcome back to the channel Style by C. Today's tutorial will be on how to recreate this beautiful piece. Do subscribe to the channel, don't forget to share to friends, give us a thumbs up and stay tuned for more. Thank you. So guys, the first part we're going to be cutting out is the skirt part of our dress. Okay, so I'm going to be using 41 inches as my full length, but you can decide to use less or more. Alright, so from there I'm going to mark my half length, which is at 16 inches here. So from this 16 inches, I mark towards the down, which is mark the hem of my dress, which is 41 inches. So this is going to be where my waistline is. Okay. So note that I included both my hemming and seam allowance inside the 41 inches. So go ahead and mark your waist measurements. Add 3 to 4 inches. 3 inches for ease, then 4 inches, 1 inch extra for seam allowance. And that I have there. Then from that point, you're going to come down to 9 inches where you mark your hip line. Now there's two things here. You can decide to mark the same thing you have on your waist measurements here, or you can decide to add extra 1 inch to what you have there. Okay, so I have 11 and a half. I just added not so much, just using the same 11 and a half or 11.75 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to connect these two together. From the waist, connect to your hip, then from the hip you drag it towards the bottom part of your dress. Okay, and this is what we have. Now we'll go ahead to cut this piece out. So guys, I'm going to use this to cut out another piece which is going to serve as my back. Let's assume this is our front. We'll cut out another piece of this nature. So guys, now we're going to be cutting out the upper parts of our gown. Okay, so I'm going to be trimming this off. This dotted Essex here. All right, so please ignore that. Now the next thing to do is go ahead and insert your shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 7.5. I've marked it. Now if you look at what we have in the picture, the sleeve is more longer, but I don't want my own to be that long. Okay, so I'm going to be using 8 inches for my sleeve here, and note we are still going to be adding extra to it. All right, so now this is what you have. At that point where your sleeve stops, come down by 1 inch. This is for your shoulder slope. Then come to this shoulder area, mark 2.5 inches for your neck width. That is the wideness of your neck. Then connect it from the 1 inch slope to the neck width. And this is what you have. All right, now go ahead and mark your sleeve opening. All right, that is your arm opening where your hand is going to pass through. So I'm going to be using about 10 inches. If you want it to be more, you want it to be tight, you can use 8 to 9 inches. All right, so I'm going to be using 10 inches. You can decide to work with 9.5 inches to avoid it being too bulgy or too open. All right, so for what I was talking about the sleeve being longer, you can decide to increase your own. Maybe instead of using 8, you can decide to use 10, or you can decide to use 12. All right, or even 18. The choice is totally yours. Okay, so now place your tape back at your start point line, which is here. Go ahead and mark your half length. So my half length is 16 inches. I'm adding extra half an inch to it, making it 16.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and make a rule across. So at this point now, I'll mark my waist measurement. That is where my half length is. And I'm going to add the same exact measurements you use for your skirt parts. Remember you added 3 inches plus 1, 4 inches extra. Please go ahead and do it on this waist area. Okay, then at this sleeve opening, that is where you're going to insert your bust measurements. You also go ahead and add extra 4 inches. Then connect this two points together. So from here now, you make a curve into this area, and this is what I have. So go ahead and cut this piece out. So this piece is for our back piece. We'll be using this to cut out our front piece. Okay, so keep this aside, fold another fabric. So guys, to cut off my front piece, I went ahead to place my back piece on another folded fabric. All right, and I give half an inch spacing before placing it. Okay, the half an inch is for joining, because we're going to be joining a piece in front. All right, so that is why we have the half an inch. So go ahead and cut out. Now the next thing to cut out is the depth of our neck. So for our back piece, you're going to be using 1 inch for the neck depth, and for the front piece, we're going to be using 2.5 inches. So yeah, the front piece is 2.5 by 2.5 inches, the neck width and the neck depth. Then the front piece, the back piece, is 1 by 2.5 inches. All right. So the next thing we'll be cutting out is the band that is going to be on the waist. Here we're going to be passing our drawstring. Okay, so I'm going to be working with 4 inches. That is the boldness. I'm marking 4.5 inches here. I'm going to be trimming off half an inch later. Okay, so what you have to do is you're going to use your iron, pressing iron. Go ahead and make a fold on the two sides, this like this. You also do it on this other side. Go ahead and iron it down. Okay, now let's cut the band that is going to be around our sleeve. Yeah, so we used about 10.5 inches for that. I'll be 10 inches, 9.5 to 10 inches. So I'm going to fold in. You're going to work with about 3 inches on a fold or 4 inches on a fold, depending on how good you want it to be. You can also decide to work with 2 inches on a fold. Okay, but because my sleeve is a little short, I'm going to be increasing the boldness of mine. So for these two, you also go ahead and iron it down. All right, so go ahead to iron it flat. Also do the same thing for this other piece. All right. The next thing to cut out is our first pocket. for my first pocket, I'm going to be using about 7 inches wide. So by the time I stitch on both sides, I'm going to be left with 6 inches, all right, or 5 inches. So let's work with 6 inches. By the time we are done, we're going to be left with about 5 inches. That is the length. Then the width, we're going to be working with 4.5 inches. You can decide to work with 5 inches or less. So for this pocket of yours now, what you have to do is go ahead and run a stitch on it on all the sides. Leave about 1 inch spacing or 2 inches where you're going to turn it out at the upper area. Okay, then go ahead and also cut out a design, like we're going to be having a design at the sleeve area. Yeah, so we'll also cut out that. So for that, I'm going to be having about, let's say, 2.5 inches for that, or 2 inches for it. Then I'm going to be using 2 inches on a fold. Then the length, I'm going to be having about 6 inches. Okay, so now I want to give it a stylish cut at this area, so I'm going to increase it to 7. Like I want to give it a pencil mount here. Just like this. Okay, so I'll stitch on the two sides, turn it out. So this is going to be 2 pieces, one for the right hand or right sleeve and one for the left sleeve. So guys, the next thing we're going to be doing now is to be attaching our first pocket to the skirt part of our gown. So this is our front piece. I went ahead and marked it about 4 inches. This is more below 4 inches, so at least 4 inches or 3.5 inches. Okay, starting from your waistline below. Then the difference between the two, I have 6 inches. All right, so 3 inches from the center line inwards. You mark 3 inches. That is where you place your first pocket. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and run a stitch on it. The first thing first I'm going to do here is I'm going to be fixing my band to the front piece. Okay, and the band is about 1.5 inches on a fold. You can decide to make yours more bolder, maybe 2 inches or 2.5 is totally fine. All right, so go ahead and fix it, then cut out the excesses you may have. Okay, after fixing the band, this is what we have. So the next thing to do is, if you have excess, go ahead and cut them off. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and join these two pieces together. That is the two front pieces together. You're going to use about 1/2 inch or 1 inch to join them together. All right, so if you have a weaving machine, please go ahead and do so. Okay, like weave the inside so it will be very neat. So guys, now we're going to determine how deep we want our slit to be. So starting from your neck depth, which is here, measure about 5 inches. Okay, so you can decide to go more deeper. The choice is totally yours. Okay, so I think 5 inches is more preferable for this. All right, so now you're going to use 1/2 inch to close up this area. So from here now you run a stitch down to this point. Okay, so guys, the next thing I did was to join my down piece of my front to the upper piece of my front. Okay, the same thing I did for my back. Now I'm going to go ahead and join the two shoulders together. Place your fabric right sides facing each other. Go ahead and join it shoulder to shoulder. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go ahead to do now. So guys, having done this now, the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and shape my dress using 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to shape the side of my dress using 1 inch up to the bottom part. Okay, now for the bottom part, you can decide to give a slit. Like what we have in the picture, there is a slit opening. All right, so you can decide to keep a slit opening, which is totally fine. You can decide to close it up. So should in case you want to put a slit opening, what you have to do is measure Depending on how deep you want it to be, you can decide to leave it at 5, you can decide to leave it at 7. Okay, so let's assume we are working with 5 inches for our slit opening. This is where our 5 inches stops. So when we are stitching our 1 inch, getting to this point, we're going to notch it, like knot it. All right. So guys, please, before closing up your stitching, that's the side stitching, please ensure that you join your band to your sleeve area. Okay, so my band reduced because my fabric wasn't enough. I actually thought I was working with maybe about 5 inches wood or 4 inches wood, but now it's very tiny because my fabric wasn't enough, so I have to adjust and use it for other things. All right, so please ensure you join this band before closing up your stitch by the side. So guys, the next thing I'm going ahead to fix now is my stylish design that is on the sleeve. Okay, I place it in between my band and my sleeve. All right, so now I marked about 7 inches. This stylish design is 5 inches long or 6 inches long, so I marked 7 inches. Okay, so it's going to be a little longer than this. So what I have to do is I'm going to pull it this way, go ahead and run a stitch here to hold it down, and when I'm done, it's going to look like this is the one I've done already. Okay, and if you have a press button, you can decide to use it instead of running a stitch here. Okay, so guys, now we're going to be fixing our casing for our belt. All right, so I have about 2.5 inches of band here. Okay, so first thing first we're going to do is you're going to fold in this way, mark 2 inches from this center line now. So from this center spacing, go ahead and mark about 2 inches. All right, 2 or 1 inch, but I think 2 inches is more preferable on both sides of your piece. And this is what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead and fix this band there. So closing this area, this edge, fold in a little, go ahead and run a stitch on it. So this is going to be in between your joining, the waistline, this waistline, and that's the upper part and the down part. So that's what you're going to go ahead to do. So go ahead and run a stitch till get to the other side, which is here. Okay, all right guys, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to measure around where you have your neck area. Okay, so measure it round. When I did my, I have about 20 inches. I added extra 1 inch to it, went ahead and cut out the straps. Please don't mind my joining. All right, so now the next thing I'm going to do is, or the next thing I went ahead to do was to fold my band, the neck band, into two. Then I went ahead to place this one inwards. Okay, so from here now I'm going to attach to my neck piece. So this is my neck area, so I'm going to place this way, run a stitch on it till I get to the other side of the neck. So guys, after joining the first one, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is flip it in this way. All right, go ahead and run a stitch on top of it. Okay, so guys, the next step after fixing my collar now is to fix my belt. Okay, so I'm going ahead to make a strap for my belt. Now I'm going to pass it inside the casing that we made earlier. Okay, so I'm using a set pin to pass it. If you have some other thing you can use to pass it, is totally fine. Okay, so at this point now your dress is ready after passing the strap or the rope or the belt, anyway.